Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock Athletics Podcast. Dan Kroll here, July 9th, 2025. This is episode 137. And tonight I have a recent graduate of West Hancock just from about 3 years ago, former standout athlete, Kennedy Kelly, part of that Kelly family that I've had a lot of your family members on as guests already. So thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
You bet. This will be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. Got to get to my sponsors like always. We have the Honoring Legends section. We get to honor Billy Dahlman, the Hartman family, and Paul Hauge. Thanks to Ben Hartman for kind of giving me this idea. He selected Billy. Dale and Kelly selected their whole family. And then Rachel Schultz selected Coach Hauge to be in the Honoring Legends section. So thank you for that. Single episode sponsors tonight. I have Lehman Family Dental in Clear Lake. Jeff and Becky Nielsen, First State Bank, Katie's Salon and Tanning in Titonka, Johnson Drainage, and this guy named Pat Kelly. He decided to write a book called K-State's Wrestling Legacy. So go to Amazon.com and purchase Pat's book. I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit later. I got a couple good questions about Uncle Pat. My other sponsors are my lifetime sponsors. This is my big list. Here we go. I got Levi Don Trucking, Window World of Mason City, Doug and Kathy Zool. Congrats to Kathy, by the way, on her retirement from her job. Pritchard's Auto, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Triple B's Food Trucks, Swenson's Hardware, Zach and Chris Schlugger, Nick Schmidt, Kelly Real Estate, the Brit Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruises, which I think the first one's next week. Mike Muth Welding, Stacy and Carrie Gopel, Main Salon, Jason Gardner with Whiffles Hybrids, Britt Seed Company, Deemer Realty, the Benning family, the Britt Bar and Grill, Trilson Auto Parts, Cliff Howlett, the Britt Vet Clinic, and Richard Woobin with B&B Ag Sales. It's a big list. Again, if you want to be a sponsor of the podcast, get a hold of me. We'll make that happen. All the money from sponsorships goes directly to the Bob and Linda Sanger Legacy Fund. We fund the Hall of Fame. That's coming up next month. Scholarships for graduating seniors, any athletic activity needs at West Hancock, any community outreach needs. The Sanger Legacy Fund always wants to help out with those. Go to sangerstrong.com if you want to give, or like I said, reach out to me if you are interested in sponsorship. All right, way back when, I always highlight a few past episodes. 50 episodes ago, on episode 87, was Larry Highhouse, two-time state champion wrestler for Britt. And then 100 episodes ago, episode 37, was Bob Horner, former Britt assistant coach, and then he became a very successful basketball coach at Mason City High School. All right, I always say enough of me talking. Let's start with some introduction. Again, Kennedy Kelly, just tell everybody what you're up to these days.
So I'm currently going into my senior year at Iowa State University, which is kind of crazy to think about. And I keep pretty busy. I feel like at Iowa State, I tutor and I mentor there for the athletic building, and then I'm in a sorority currently, and so I stay pretty busy there. In the summers, I do come home. I waitress at the Landing, which is in Clear Lake, so not too far. And I feel like this summer in particular, pretty busy, taking just college classes and trying to plan a wedding, applying to PT school. So it's been overwhelming, but it's all been good.
Yeah, what are you majoring in?
Kinesiology pre-physical therapy.
Okay, nice. And
Yeah,
you said
so
you got
that'll just get all the prereqs done that you need for, PT school and just a bunch of things like that. So
nice.
yeah,
And
it's
you started at Grandview, correct?
Yeah, so I went there my freshman year, and everything was great. I mean, I loved Grandview, and then it was like December, I think December 14th. We were not even halfway through our season, I don't think, and I tore my ACL. So that was, I had all plans and all intentions to come back and play there. But just after going through that recovery, it was the same leg as my Achilles, which I had done when I was 16. So I just kind of thought that that was God kind of telling me maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking kind of long term. I had the physical therapist in my brain, and I was, yeah, just trying to think long term and what would be the best thing for me. So I decided to transfer.
Yeah, and you had been playing basketball pretty much your whole life, and there's a lot of people learn. You go to play college. it's a whole different level of commitment, and you've been doing it for years, and it's tough too. And then yeah, you throw in an injury, and it's like, do I want to have knee injuries for the rest of my life when I'm 20 years old, all the way to whenever? And
Gosh,
be
I
tough.
know. I think my family, yeah, definitely knows a little bit about that. So, and
Yeah.
just like, the re-tear rates and everything. And I'm just, yeah, I decided to kind of call it quits there.
Yep. Yep. Don't blame me there. And you said you're getting married.
Yes, yeah. Kind of crazy.
Congrats.
Next June is kind of what we planned for. So,
Okay. Nice. Yeah.
yeah.
That adds another element to the craziness of life. So.
Yes.
You bet. So yeah, you graduated in just 2022, just a couple years ago. You played volleyball, basketball, ran track, played softball for a couple years. Like always, this is a sports podcast. We'll jump into those sports here, kind of progress into the ones you were, maybe more passionate or successful in, and then jump into some current day stuff. So, softball, you played in eighth grade and played some varsity, played your freshman season. Um, who would have been your softball coach those first couple years when you did play?
It was Ethan Weiss.
Ethan Weiss. Yep. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. The lady that took over for him, I can't remember her name, but she's been there a couple years now, I believe. So, yep.
Yep.
So they're getting better. I watched them once last
I
summer,
know.
and
I keep hearing that. It's like good for them. Finally someone, I think there's a lot of stuff that's happening outside the program now, like initiative to start, going to batting practices and stuff like that. So that's awesome for them.
yeah. Did you enjoy your time playing softball?
I did. I was short-lived. It was only for a couple years. But it's fun. I think, in the summer, it's a huge commitment. You're kind of missing most of your summer, which is, the con of it. But um, there's nothing like going on bus rides, in the summer late at night and playing virtually like every single day.
Yeah.
You have a game. And so those are fun memories there.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting looking at stats. You scored 8 runs, but had 0 hits. Were you mostly a pinch runner, I assume?
Yes, I would come in for, okay, from what I remember, this was so long ago. I would come in for Maddie to run. I'm almost positive. Maddie or Riley. Because Maddie was pitcher, Riley was catcher. Usually they didn't want them running. So
Yeah. I gotta disagree with you when you say it was so long ago. What was that,
I
5 years ago?
I
You,
know it
you
really
just
wasn't that
wait.
long ago. When you sent me this the other day, I was like, holy cow, I cannot remember some of this stuff that I probably should know.
Oh, you just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait. I got my 20-year, and now we're not, I don't know if we're having a class reunion, but it's 20 years. And I'm like, geez, I used to think I'd remember everything. And now I'm like, gosh, I can't remember a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
one good reason why I do this thing, I end up a lot of memories come back when I talk to people about my age. So
Yeah.
yeah, and as a freshman, you played and started in all 23 games. Uh, this time you did have some hits, 21 hits, scored 15 runs, 5 RBIs. You had a 333 batting average, which, Major League Baseball, that's an all-star right there. You also pitched, 1-6 record as a pitcher. What are some softball memories you have from those couple seasons?
I think like individual memories is hard to kind of recall, but I just loved having that because I think Maddie was super into softball, Maddie Iceman. She put a lot of time into pitching. And Riley also put a lot of time into catching for her. And obviously you had some other girls out there too. But having leaders like that who did put time in and older people to look up to because it's really hard coming in as an eighth grader. That's kind of a crazy concept. You just get out of middle school and then all of a sudden you're playing high school sports.
With a
Um,
seniors and juniors in high school, that's a
yes, it's
big
such a
difference.
huge age gap and you kind of jump into it. And so, yeah, I mean, and Maddie and Riley are amazing people. And so having them as older people to look up to and kind of show you how things are supposed to go, that was probably some of my best memories because we're, still friends to this day. So those are two people I really, really enjoyed playing sports with.
Yeah, and I did a podcast with that group of those seniors from those basketball
Yes,
teams.
I remember that.
And sometimes when I interview younger people, I'm like, you never know what you're gonna get, And I'm like, they didn't even need me on that thing. They could have just ran the whole thing and been great. It was a lot of fun talking to those girls. They're very, very fun girls to talk to. So,
Yes.
and we mentioned before we hit record with basketball, you had like 3 days of workouts, and then if you played volleyball, which you did, you probably had some open. gym times for volleyball, and then that starts at the end of July, and um, it's
That
summer's
was
busy.
crazy. I those were not good memories. Those ones were, but it was like I remember specifically in high school, it was like it would have been around track season or something like that. But it was I think we had batting workouts at 6 or 6:30 in the morning. We'd go into the gym, we'd pitch, we'd bat obviously, and then after school it was track. So then we'd go to track practice, and then after that, we would load up and all go to Mason City for AU basketball practice. And so, then we wouldn't get home till 10 p.m. And it was like that was, like once, I don't know if it was once or twice a week, every week. And but we loved it. I mean, we lived
Yeah.
for things like that. We wouldn't have traded that for the world, but those were just things we did. So
Yeah, yep. I'm the golf coach down here, and we have open range once a week, kind of like open gym. And I know one of my better golfers, he's like, hey, it's speed and agility from 7 to 8, open gym for basketball from 8 to 10. Went to open range from 1:30 to 2:30, and then they had an away baseball game that night. It's like, but I'm like, are you
block your days
burning out?
out.
And he goes, man, I love it. Like I get to do 4 different sports a day in some capacity. So, yeah, it's just kind of how it is anymore if you want to be competitive in any
It
sport.
is. And that's exactly it. It's like when you are competitive, you love doing that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
you would block out your whole day for sports and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
if you had me to do that in college or now, I would be like, heck no, I
Yeah.
don't have it in me anymore. But
Yeah. And we'll get to that when we talk about your fiance and how sports can be a full-time job, like we already talked about off air. So let's jump into volleyball. You played 3 years of varsity. Your junior season, I'm assuming there was an injury.
yes.
Yeah. What happened in that junior year, 2020?
Yeah. So that was COVID. And everything that summer, it got hurt playing basketball. So everything that summer was kind of blocked off. You couldn't do anything. And that was obviously when we normally would play AAU basketball. And that was a huge deal to me growing up. I mean, that was kind of like my highlight of my summer, highlight of, early fall and stuff like that. And so it was COVID. We weren't able to practice for a really long time. And then all of a sudden, everything opened back up, or not everything, in moderation.
Yep.
And we got a tournament in Cedar Rapids. And so we went with not much practice. And we played in 2 games back to back. It was like 20-minute quarter halves and, way more running than what we had ever, previously been doing, sitting on our couches doing nothing all
Yeah.
day. And the fatigue definitely got to me because I tore my Achilles. There was like 3 minutes left in the last game. It and this is what I tell everybody. It literally feels like someone just kicks you in the back of your foot. It's not like super painful, but I just remember like looking in back of me because I thought someone was like literally just kicked me.
Mhm.
Um, and I went down and that was kind of just shock. I mean, that was my first like major injury ever. And so I had all the emotions, thought I would never be able to play basketball again, all that stuff. Went to the ER in Cedar Rapids and they told me it was a partial tear. So I had hope. Um, but yeah, it wasn't, and it was a full tear. So I ended up I mean, the timeline for that is like anywhere from 9 to 12 months. It's not a good timeline.
Mhm.
But I got in physical therapy right away. I think it was like 5.5 months is what it took me to recover from that. So
Yeah,
pretty,
'cause you played basketball that winter.
I did. Not at first. At first, I had some limitations.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I had to skip all volleyball, which was kind of sad. I think volleyball, we haven't had the most success in it, but like it's a super fun sport.
Yeah.
So had to miss that. And then yeah, played in moderation at the beginning of that junior season.
Yeah, because like Tyrese Halliburton, Iowa State guy, the game 7 of the finals, he's out all of next season.
Yeah.
And
Well, and Aaron Rodgers, I think he tore his, but
yeah,
then came back super crazy fast I mean, he's in probably therapy all day, every day, so that makes a
yeah, they
difference.
they have a little more money to throw around for
They do.
taking care of
They do.
themselves. And then with Halliburton, it's like, what's he, $40 million a year player? It's like we're not rushing that asset back
No.
too soon because we got a
No,
lot
and
of money.
yeah, and he's so young. It's like why even try?
Yeah, so yeah, volleyball, you played varsity for 3 years, freshman, sophomore, senior. You were third in attacks as a freshman, first in digs. And again, like you said, the team wasn't very successful. You guys were 6-22 as a freshman. I wouldn't normally say this is your first ever varsity anything, but you had eighth grade uh, varsity softball experience, but volleyball and softball are vastly different
Yeah.
sports. Softball, people are kind of outside the fence and all over the place, and it's not like the people are right on top of you. You get in a gym for basketball and volleyball, and it's like everyone's 8 feet away from you. What was that like first time you
Yeah,
got
it
the
was
action?
coming in because then I started playing a pretty major role on the team. And I think if you would have told me before the season started that, okay, you're going to start and you're going to play all the way around, I would have laughed at you because I had no expectations going in. I mean, in middle school, it was like the hard part is, yeah, we weren't good. But we never put any time in before. We would play for, I don't even know how long the middle school season is. It's probably like a month or month and a
Barely,
half.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we would play for that amount of time a year and then we would ditch it until next year.
yeah,
So it's like, obviously we wouldn't see a lot of progress when we're not really focusing on volleyball.
yeah.
Um, and so I think that was kind of the story with softball and volleyball. Um, but yeah, I mean, as a freshman or as a middle schooler, all we focused on was trying to even just get a decent pass. Like that was the main goal.
Mhm.
It, a lot of times we couldn't even do that. So then going to high school and it's like, okay, now we're trying to incorporate plays, which I think some people don't even know there's plays in volleyball. So
Nope.
that was, I mean, I didn't either before I started in high school. And then, yeah, I mean, just playing all the way around, which as a person who's 5'3" that's yeah, not very common, and I don't think that was to my benefit by any means. Um, but yeah, it was hard, and then having all those fans come, and it's hard because a lot of the time we were losing, and so you really just you got to swallow your pride and um, you just figure things out, and you have small goals. It's like it's not our goal at the end of the season wasn't to win 20 games, obviously, but it was to just get better every set. And so I think we did okay.
Yep. And in our side of the conference, I still have to tell myself it's not the North Iowa Conference, it's the TIC. But Lake Mills and Forest City are on our side of the conference. And if you follow sports in North Iowa, Lake Mills volleyball for 30 years, it's, equivalent to a degree of like West Hancock football. Just every year you're going to count on them being just really, really good. Um,
Yeah, and having consistent coaching staffs and they have people that take all those kids, all those grades, I mean AAU and take them all over during the off season. I don't even know what it is for volleyball if it's in the spring or summer or what, but they do that. And we do that for other things, but just it's not volleyball for us.
yeah. Who were your coaches? I'm guessing you had more than one coach in your 4 years.
Yes, it was Amber Kluverheimer was my freshman year, and then Michelle DeHart was I don't remember what year she took over. Maybe it was my sophomore year she took over.
Okay. So I
Maybe.
remember she did come back for a while. She was the coach when I was in school for, I think, all 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
And that would have been 2001, 2, 3, and 4 seasons. So yeah, I do remember she came back. You wouldn't have had her as a teacher, her as a teacher for you.
No.
She was a principal, but man, Mrs. DeHart was a very good teacher, and I always remember talking to other coaches. 'Cause I didn't obviously play volleyball, so I wasn't in that world, but talking to Coach Drake and Coach Sanger and some of them, they said Mrs. DeHart knows the game. Like she knew her X's and O's very well, and she put, as a principal like she is now, but she puts everything into what she does, and I always had a lot of respect for Mrs. DeHart.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, nobody messed with her. That's for sure.
Yeah. Uh, I saw her at a job fair in Iowa at Iowa State in Ames this winter. I went with our HR director, and her and Dan Peterson are there, and I'm like, that I know them.
Yeah,
Went and sat and had lunch with them, and I was not exactly the best math student, and she was my high school math teacher.
that's
I
funny.
didn't care much about it, and so I'd mess around in class. And she goes, "So Dan, what do you teach?" And I said, "Fourth grade math." And the look she gave me, and I said, "You are a little surprised." She goes, "I would have never guessed that in a million years."
That's so
So
funny.
we had a good laugh at that. But I'm like, now I don't want to do anything but teach math at the elementary level. So
Yeah.
just funny how life works. So
That is so funny.
yeah. So sophomore year 2019, you were third on the team in attacks, second in digs. Still not a great record, 4-26. And then your junior year, we've already talked about. You didn't have any statistics because you couldn't play. Team was 3-22. Were you still at practice and at games? Were you a part of the team, or were you focusing on your rehab?
No, I was definitely still, I came to every practice and yeah, as far as I remember, I went to every single game, every single tournament.
Yep.
Um, I wanted to stay involved and I knew I was gonna do it my senior year, so I didn't want to miss out on, new rotations and new plays. Like volleyball didn't come as quick to me as basketball did, like the formations and everything where you're supposed to be
Yep.
at, what you're supposed to do. So I always just kind of wanted to be there and just help out when I could.
Yeah. And the way 2020 was with COVID, what was it? You got like 2 tickets per player to go to a game, so the stands were pretty much empty.
Yeah,
Students couldn't go, right? And so it's like, if I'm not a part of the team, my social life's pretty much
I
wrecked
know,
at that
right?
point. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like better be out because I might not be able to go do anything else otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
I always gave Jay Hiscox a hard time because that was his first year as the head boys basketball coach.
Oh
And I
my gosh.
said, Jay, you took over as coach, and look what happened to the attendance. It just
Yeah,
plummeted. He's like, gosh,
that's
shut
funny.
up.
That year was crazy because I remember so Caleb played that year at state and it was like the next game, so they lost and Bishop Garrigan I think won. They didn't play each other, but they were on opposite sides. And it was like if they would have made it, maybe it was to the finals even that year. I can't remember, but it was like 2 tickets or 4 tickets per athlete at state for the finals,
Yeah,
which is just crazy to think about.
yeah,
But that was a crazy year.
yeah. Glad it's gone, and it's already been 5 years. That's the part that
Yes.
floors me. So yeah.
Yes.
So senior year, real quick here at volleyball. You were back second in attacks, 261, first in digs with 110. Again, the team struggled 3-28. No, there's not a lot of success. You can't talk about this big win here and this big win here and this playoff
Yeah.
run, but you already kind of talked a little bit, just the kind of you still had a good experience, it sounds like playing
Yeah.
volleyball.
Yeah, I did. And sometimes you play with people that you don't play with in other sports. I think that happened a lot in volleyball, actually. And so it was nice to bond with other people in the high school. And it really is, it's such a fun sport. My mom was a volleyball player. She played in college. And so I think she always kind of wanted that, for me. But I wish, maybe we were a little bit better because maybe that was something I would have pursued, later in life. So.
Yep, yep. So let's jump into track here. You had a lot of success on the track, went to state multiple times. In total, you ran at state in 5 different events. As a freshman in 2019, you ran in the shuttle hurdles and the 400-meter hurdles at the state tournament as a freshman. Kind of the theme of the night here is like, you did this as a freshman, this is a freshman. Now we're gonna, bigger stage, the Drake Stadium, state track. You're a freshman, all what 5'3" of you out there in front of thousands of people. Talk about that first experience and being on the track team with Coach Sanger.
Yeah, that was super, super nerve-wracking. I always told people I could get nervous for a basketball game, but nothing will ever compare to a track meet. I mean, it is just, you felt like just throwing up before your race because it's harder when it's an individual race and something like 400-meter hurdles. I mean, there's just so much you have to get through before the finish line.
Mm.
So that was so nerve-wracking. Just at normal track meets, let alone at state. I didn't really have a ton of expectations going into state with that just because I think I started running that. I know my first time was at the Belmont meet, and I can't say whether that was like, it was more than like halfway through the season. So
Okay.
I didn't start running 400-meter hurdles at the beginning. It was just never even on the table. I never even thought about it. And one random day I was like, hey, I should maybe try this. So then I did. I ran like a 117, I think was my first one. And Mark was like, Kennedy, like that's like not bad for your first time.
Yeah.
Uh, and obviously you just went out there, you have no idea like strategy because there's a strategy behind it with your steps and everything. Maybe if we worked on this is something that I could actually be really good in. So we started, he started teaching me like, okay, you need 29 steps or whatever it is. But for your first hurdle, and then, it's different for your second ones because I was stuttering a lot. Um, and we just got it figured out. And I ended up, yeah, like getting it down to 109 or whatever, which is a lot of time off. And so, yeah, no expectations going into state, but it was really cool that being able to do that.
Yeah, like we'll talk about the shuttle hurdle here in a second. There we always say there's 40 chances for disaster, and sounds
Yeah,
like something happened. But even in the 400 hurdles, anytime you run a hurdle event, you're pretty much just counting the whole time you're out there because it is such a step-based race. So
it
uh,
is.
focus, I got to beat this girl and I got to not fall over this hurdle, and you're out there just one, two, three, just counting the
Yeah,
steps the whole time.
it
So,
really is because you can see the people ahead of you curving, and it's like, okay, am I getting over this hurdle before they are? Or,
yep,
and then, it's like trying to go over. I always wanted to go over with my right leg every time. That was kind of the goal. And then luckily I could hurdle with my left because I couldn't five step, or I had to five step on shuttle hurdle.
yeah.
So I was able to go over with my left, but it wasn't preferred, and yeah, so it was tricky.
So in your era, the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, they give out medals for first through eighth place. You got ninth. You were just off the medal as a freshman. 109.8 was your time. Do you remember how close you were to the
I
medal?
know it was less than a second, and I just remember because I thought the ending of that, from what I can remember, was super, super close. Um, and yeah, that was pretty disappointing because obviously I just wanted to, you want to be in the top eight, you want to get a medal. Um, so that, yeah, it was very close though.
Yep. What happened with the shuttle hurdles? That was a disqualification.
I was trying to think back on this, and I know one of the years Rachel fell because she was trying to three step. That was always the goal for everybody. Okay, three step, it kind of makes you faster. But by the end of, you're getting a hurdle 8, 9, 10. It's hard to three step. And so it was just she missed one and she fell. And I think it was, she didn't, I honestly, I could be wrong by saying this, but I don't think she was the one that disqualified us. Like she didn't go out of her lane or anything. I think it was potentially that next person or the person after that that left too early. I think, we were just trying to catch up, and so it was kind of like that eagerness
Yeah.
to get going. But
Like I
yeah.
said, 40 chances for disaster in that
Yeah.
race. And you know how it is. It's no one purposely did anything to get DQ'd.
Oh
You know that
no.
person's gonna feel horrible for
I know, and it's like
not
none
yet.
of us, from what I remember, it's like we didn't fall all year, and then it really is. It's just it's different down there. Their track feels
Yep.
different. The hurdles are heavier. It's so different. So
Yep. Yep. Talk about Coach Sanger, your first experience getting to be in a sport led by him.
yeah, it was different because I watched my brothers being coached by him, and I think he treats the girls versus the guys a little bit differently.
Yeah.
He's not as vocal with the girls, but it was great. I think he's extremely driven, and he really appreciates people who are also extremely driven. And so, yeah, I mean, the standards are just very high for the singers in general. You always kind of you want to do well because you want to impress Coach Sanger. And so, yeah, I mean, there was always good competition, and he always, practices were really short, really quick. It was so different from basketball season
Mhm.
because our practices would be like over 2 hours long. And, that was just, we'd come before, school starts, and we wouldn't leave until the sky was dark. And so track was a little bit refreshing because it was just short, quick. You were kind of, it was very individualized. Sprinters did this, throwers did this. You do your lift, you get out of there. So I think he set that up so well. It was very refreshing. And I think he got the best out of a lot of us.
Yep. I mean, look at his dad on the boys' side for 50 years. That guy knew what he was doing, and Mark's ready. Like, let's go. Like, here we go. Just cool to see. As you were talking, my mind went to like I played for Bob Sanger, and so did your dad and your uncles and people back up into the 60s. And then now
Yeah.
I'm talking to 20 some year olds, and you're talking about Coach Sanger. And it's just so cool that it's the next generation, several
Yeah.
generations for Bob, and now this next generation with Mark, it just continues at West Hancock. I just love that it's still going, and
Yeah.
it's really neat. That's where my mind was going to. Not that I wasn't listening to you, but I just had a moment of like, gosh, it's just so cool that Mark is just continues, and he's
Yeah.
just like Bob was. It's great. So, sophomore year, you didn't make it to state, but no one did that year because of that
Yeah.
thing. That sucked. I'm the high school golf coach down here, and we lost our golf season. I would have had five seniors that year. And we joke now, we're like, golf, like that would have been the one sport we could have had because it's the easiest social distancing sport there is.
Oh yeah.
And it was just the timing of things sucked. The why we lost track and why we lost golf and school was shut down. No one knew what was going on. It was just the unknown. But how disappointed were you to not have your sophomore year of track?
Yeah, that definitely sucked, but I don't think it really hit until way later on that like, okay, we're missing a whole entire season. Like this is unheard of. This is crazy. Um, and unfortunately, I think we would have been really, really good that year.
Yeah.
And I think everybody can say that, we would have been good.
Yeah.
All about that if, thing. But we really would have. If you look at stats coming back and all those that senior class that was really, really good. Yeah, we would have been pretty good.
Did you guys call dibs on the state championship?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if anybody did that. Probably, I think actually.
I did that for my golf program. We have a school in our conference, Panorama.
Oh yeah.
They had a kid that won the state championship the year before, and he was coming back, and their team was looking to be top two, if not state champs that year, and they were pretty devastated. But there were some coaches when we were in a text thread, and I called dibs right away, so they call us the 2020 state champions. So we
Yeah, that's good.
why not roll with it? So yeah, you just make the story how you want it to be, and you just go with it. So.
There you go.
Um, as a student, my mind's also going to like, what were you hearing as a student? You're like, am I gonna have to do remote learning my entire junior year of high school? Are we gonna have to do it? What were you guys hearing about how school was gonna look?
Well, it was just so crazy. Like, I remember all of us, I don't know what day it was, but I was with a bunch of the seniors. We were all together, and then all of a sudden, we get a text saying, your school has now been canceled for the next 30 days.
Yeah,
And we were just like, oh my gosh, is this real?
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, then, it was so much more than just that. It was the rest of the school year, sports, everything. And I was lucky to not be a senior that year, obviously, because they lost a lot. Um, but there's definitely, I think there were some pros and cons to COVID. I always look back and I'm like, that was probably some of the happiest, less most um not stressful times of my life. We were living every day and I got extremely close with my family. I think that during that time, we were forced to be together. We had movie nights every night. We
yeah,
fixed up our acreage really nice. It was like we had some time to kind of take to ourselves. And so, yeah, there was definitely a lot that went on that wasn't positive, obviously, but there was some good things that I found in that.
yeah, definitely. I had preschool age twin boys at that time, so we thought that for about 3 weeks, and after that, we're like, oh my gosh, we gotta get out of here. This is
Oh my gosh, yeah.
They're just too much energy. It's like if we would have had COVID now with my boys being almost 11, they're just so chill now. It would have been
Yeah.
some unlimited games of horse and stuff outside, and
Yeah. I mean, you get that back, which was
uh,
it was nice.
yeah, different world. But and it was only
Yeah.
5 years ago, but it's just hard to put it into words. Like it was 5 years ago, but it doesn't seem that long. But it does seem, I don't know. It was just
Yeah.
a weird time. So, but anyway,
And
your
we
junior
still
year,
talk about it, which is
yeah.
kind of crazy. Like when I'm doing observation hours or, just you still reference COVID, which is just it's just crazy.
Yep, still see people wearing masks and people
Yeah.
still stuff. It'll never officially go away, but you just don't hear about it as much. So yeah, so your junior year, 2021, you got to state in three different events: the 400 hurdles again, the shuttle hurdles again, and then the 4x4. You were 10th in the 400 hurdles with a time of 109.67. So your time was what, 0.13 seconds better than a freshman freshman year, but you got a place worse. That's you just never know in track. Like it just depends on who you're running against and the day. You just never know. So, your 4x4 team got 17th, 4:27.08 time in the shuttle hurdle. No DQ this year, so you gotta see what place you got. You got 12th, 1 minute 12.79 seconds. What do you remember about that junior year, and what were you thinking going into senior year?
Yeah, that junior year it kind of scared me because we were starting to get pretty good at the 4x4, which is, after running 400-meter hurdles, that was always, I hated that. That's maybe why I didn't really like track very much. But it was like 400-meter hurdles, and then it was, I don't know if it's one or two or three races between the 4x4. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I
But
don't
it
know
was just
exactly, but
like, holy cow. Oh my gosh. The end of the night was not, I was not, never in a good mood. Um, but yeah, we started to get pretty good at the 4x4 and yeah, we actually qualified, which was super, super exciting. Um, so that was fun running that down there. Again, just a lot of pressure, I think, coming back running 400-meter hurdles again, there's just obviously I wanted to place. That was probably my top priority. It was to place in 400-meter hurdles and that didn't happen again. So I think coming out of that, if I remember my emotions, I was probably pretty devastated by that. But what can you do?
yeah, yeah. And 4x4, I'm like, your parents are probably like, really, Mark? Have our daughter running the last race of the night? So
Last
we gotta be here
race.
all night long.
I know, I know. Shoot, I wish Mark would have thought about me. My parents want to get going, so
Yeah. What leg did you run in the 4x4?
what'd you say?
What leg of the 4x4 did you run?
I would always be third or fourth, I feel like, because Mark wanted to give me more of a break
Mhm.
um in between the 400-meter hurdles and that. So I don't think I anchor. Honestly, I can't even remember. I think for my freshman year, I was running like the second leg in that, and then junior year it was maybe third or fourth.
Okay. Even better for your parents. Not only is she in the last race,
Yeah.
but she's gonna be on the last legs of it too. Yeah. So yeah. Don't I feel bad for your mom, not as much for your dad, but yeah. So
That's what everyone says.
yeah. Yeah. And then senior year, what happened there in 2022?
Yeah, so that was kind of an unfortunate year for me. I was trying to figure out a lot of where I wanted to go to college, and I was very mixed because Nyack had just gotten women's wrestling. And my dad was kind of pushing pretty hard for me to go try it. Obviously, I think that sounds kind of crazy because I never had in high school. But he's like, no, like just try it. I think this will be very good for you. Community college, you're going to be close to home, it's cheaper, whatever. And so I was very, very pulled between staying with something that I'd done my whole life, going to Grandview. I know a bunch of the girls on the team, or going to wrestle for my dad. And um, so for starting that, I went to open mats over at Nyack. And I just started feeling it out. Like obviously, like in my head, I know what wrestling should look like. I know some of the moves and everything just from watching my family, my brothers for my whole life. But I was just trying to, yeah, get in shape. And I think the goal was to go wrestle out at Virginia Beach High School Nationals in, it was like end of March, usually is when that is. My family always goes out, or like my dad and Creighton and Hayden, my mom, they always go out there. So I was just going to join him and I was going to say, okay, if this goes well, maybe I'll take on wrestling. But if it goes terribly and I, am not good, then I'm just going to call it quits.
Yeah.
Well, one day in open mat, I was wrestling this kid that was a lot bigger than me, and I tried to do a mat return, and my ankle stayed on the mat, but my body didn't, and my ankle, I mean, I just sprained the heck out of my ankle, and it was um so incredibly painful. I multiple pops. I think, some ligaments kind of got messed up too, and so that was, I mean, so sometimes ankle sprains are worse than
Yeah.
fractures. So I was really scared to even tell Mark because obviously that is going to take over most of my track season. But I came to the lock-in that night at Britt on crutches, and I don't think people were very happy with me. But yeah, that kind of tanked my track season because by the end of the season, I mean, I was out for, yeah, most of the season. And you can't get in, shape to run 400-meter hurdles in a week. So Yeah, it was just kind of done for.
Yeah, so you didn't compete at all that year.
I no, I did. I ran at districts, but I didn't qualify. I was like, I think there was probably four or five, no, not five, but three or four people from our district that made it in 400-meter hurdles, and then I was like the next one, and I was close to the cutoff, but I didn't even make it.
Yeah. So with a Achilles issue and an ankle issue, you still almost made it to state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Mark wasn't real happy. I'll maybe ask him off air what he really thought at the moment. But yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
or
save
like,
it for
yeah,
later. So
yeah.
those Kelly's getting injured. That never happens. So
Oh my gosh, yeah,
yeah.
annual thing.
Yeah. So let's jump into basketball here. This is where you really excelled. This and as a team, you guys really excelled. And again, the theme of the night, this freshman year, holy cow, you're thrown into this. Well, your freshman year, you guys were pretty good. Um, you got to experience a state championship game as a freshman, and you got to experience Newell Fonda, and holy cow, they were
Yeah,
good.
holy cow.
I always say I've talked to the girls from that team, and I've talked to some of the coaches and stuff, and some other people. I'm like, the thing with Newell Fonda is they will throw 15 girls in there, five at a time, four at a time, and they go 100 miles an hour, and they don't care how many fouls they commit. They just want turnovers.
Yeah.
And like there is absolutely no way to replicate that in practice. You can have your JV and your young girls try, or you can even bring some boys over, but like there's just no replicating that in a real game situation, how intense they're going to just come at you constantly.
Well, and
So,
I think maybe if you played like 5 on 10, that would
yeah. Is
probably be accurate, maybe.
that what it felt like?
Yeah, that is exactly. It was just like unbelievable, honestly, because obviously nobody came close to us that season. And or maybe I don't know what our record was it were we undefeated that season?
25 and 2.
Okay.
Maybe
But
Garrigan
nobody
that
played,
year.
yeah, nobody played like Noah Font it though. That was a completely unique playing style, and we were definitely not used to that at all.
Yeah. No, you would have beat Garrigan because you guys were 16 and 0 in the conference that year. So,
Okay.
was that the year you went down and played like West Branch down in Cedar Rapids, or was that maybe the I didn't put
Well,
down all the scores on our notes, but
yeah, I can't remember who we would have lost to then.
yeah.
Or wait, we played the TIC, we played Osage for top of TIC. I know we lost that.
Okay, man, that wouldn't have maybe counted on the TIC standing since they're on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, you just counted the West teams that counted.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not for sure, but I know we lost to Osage one year. I can't remember if it was my freshman or sophomore, but I think it was because I think they went away with it my sophomore year.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, like talk about jumping in. Paul Sonius, great program in Britt, lots of success over the years. Had already been to state a couple times. He's intense. You jump in as again a 5'3" freshman, and he has high expectations for you to jump in with all these girls that have been playing together a long time. What was that like getting acclimated to varsity basketball?
I think it wasn't terrible because when I was in, I don't know about seventh grade, but seventh or eighth grade, he would bring me to the camps that we would go to in the summers. And so not that I would always play with them, like I would play with like the JV when I was in middle school. I was kind of used to like being around him as a coach. And then obviously these girls we went to, fire together when we were growing up. And so I knew him really well. Like the outside of basketball, that wasn't a problem. It definitely took a little bit of adjusting on the court, as it obviously would, because these guys had been playing together for a really long time. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was used to him. I think, I can deal with a lot, and I did, and I think, I had a lot coming. I made stupid freshman mistakes as every freshman does. I was kind of insane, kind of crazy, kind of running all over the place and just trying to wreak some havoc, I think. And with that comes a lot of fouls and a lot of stupid mistakes. And so, yeah, I got my fair share of talking to. But, it was fine. Yeah, we were pretty good. So
Until 3 years later, and you go, "Wow, I make stupid senior mistakes." You're never
it
going to
never,
avoid mistakes on the basketball court when you're playing fast. That's just
no, it
how it
never.
goes. So yeah, you had a good freshman year, though. I'd say 169 points, 74 rebounds, 40 assists, and 48 steals and a block. You didn't have many blocks, but I'm like, if I'm talking to a 5'3" basketball player, I am putting all the blocks in there.
Yeah,
So,
and I
no block.
better be getting accounted for those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the block?
I have no idea if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I should.
you probably blocked more shots than I did in high school. We played for Coach Robin Drake, and he was a take a charge type of coach. I
Okay.
I don't know if I blocked 2 shots in 3 years of varsity basketball, honestly, because it was always you stand there and just let someone run you over. That's a better percentage. One, it gives the
Oh
other
yeah,
guy a foul, and two, gives you possession because most guys want to block and swat it, and then the other
yeah,
team gets the ball back anyway. And I don't know if you watch a lot of basketball, but anymore, but it's like every time a guy swats a ball, the other team gets it, and they end up scoring most of the time on that
yeah.
next possession. So
Yep.
yeah. Um, Rachel Lear was a sophomore, and then all those girls were juniors. That made up the rest of the team. I've interviewed them already. Uh, let's get to that state tournament. You guys make state, get a couple wins, and then we talked about Newell Fonda. How do you prepare for that? And to make matters worse, you beat whoever you beat in the semifinals on Friday night. And by the way, the game is like 18 hours from now, the state championship game. So even if you wanted to prepare for Newell Fonda, it's like,
We
when are you
did
going to
it.
do that? There's
Yeah.
no preparing
We did
for
it.
it.
No, I don't think anything could have prepared us for that. I mean, because I remember I was thinking about this when you wrote this up, and I was like, we were just because the year before it was a really hard loss to make it to state. And I mean, those girls really took that hard. They took it very personal.
Yeah.
And so the my freshman season, it was all about making it to state. That was the goal. I mean, that was just every single day, that's what everybody thought about.
Yeah.
And they definitely played with a chip on their shoulder. And so that was the goal, make it to state. But when we did make it to state and we actually won, in my head, I was kind of like, okay, well, we didn't plan for this. We just, we our goal was to make it to state.
Yeah.
And so then we won against North Mahaska. And then, we were super excited, super amped up. Obviously, we had Montezuma next. They had an Iowa commit. That sounded super scary. And we were kind of nervous for Montezuma, but then we won against Montezuma. And I think there's a picture of it. It was like me, Maddie, Riley, and Rachel. And there's just like tears coming down our face, and we're just jumping for joy and
Yeah.
just so excited because I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but I don't think any of us like actually anticipated us, okay, now we're going to the finals. Um, we just wanted to make it, and I think we were ranked like pretty high that season. I think we were like two or three. But in my head, I didn't think about making it past that first game, which might be kind of bad to say. But yeah, I mean, we were just so happy to be there, really. I mean, we were playing basketball still, everybody else is done, and that's something we obviously love to do, and playing it with girls we love. And so that was so awesome. But yeah, that night in the hotel, we didn't even focus on Newell Fonda. I mean, because there was really no time. It was kind of like, okay, we probably should get to bed because we play tomorrow. And we did our shoot around the next day. We kind of talked about the players, but I mean, that was it, really.
Yeah. And on the flip side, that's about as much as Newell Fonda could have done too.
Yeah.
But with just the style of play they play, there's no like you've seen teams that run a slow-paced offense. You've seen teams that want to run with you. This is a different entity. Like they are just a beast
Yeah.
because like I said, they will run four new girls in, five new girls in, and those girls have five fouls, and they're going to use them by just trapping and coming from behind and just trying to wreak havoc and just get you frazzled. And it was obvious like that's the goal, and we were frazzled because, like you said, you thought there was 10 girls out there, and
Yeah.
they're
Well,
gonna
and you don't have a lot of bodies to sub you in, and on the other hand, they have so many people to sub in. It's like it's literally never ending. And
yeah.
yeah, I remember that just like feeling like, holy cow, is the time taking forever? Because it just it was.
So for you guys, you had to just soak in the pregame experience. Look at our crowd. We're in a state championship, all these cameras.
Yeah.
The game sucked. That was horrible. That was weird. Game's over, and it was probably like we just played in a state championship. So you had to kind of like internalize that experience by the before, kind of forget the during, and just be happy in the after because you're not, what, 8 teams, 10 teams in the entire state got to experience that.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody told us to do, but it was so hard to do because we were just like, oh my gosh, I think if we would have prepared a little bit better, I'm not saying we would have won that game. I don't think we would have ever won that game, but we didn't play as best as we could have. I mean, we did not play good at all.
Yeah,
And it was really hard to walk away from that game and be proud. Um, and I just, we were just devastated. Like we could have potentially won that. Not really, but we had an opportunity. We were in the game.
do a little
And so,
better. Yeah,
yeah, it definitely, I don't think a lot of us were really happy after that or proud in a sense to say that we were there.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
yep, yeah. And on the flip side, you get 350 other teams that are like, I wish I would have been in that situation.
Exactly. I
So
know you do
it's
have
such a
to.
hard thing when you're a competitor and you care and you want to win, and
Yeah.
other kids would be like, "Will you just be happy to be?" It's just one of those deals.
It
So,
is. I know. And when I look back at it with a more mature standpoint, I'm like, yeah, that was such a great experience. Whether
yeah,
who cares about the score? It's like played with some of those Newfoundland girls at Grandview, and I know some of them, on social media and stuff. And it's like, I don't care about that score anymore, but it was great memories and it met great people.
yep. And I remember my mom and I went to that game, and there was a lot of West Hancock people there, and it
Yes.
wasn't just people that live currently in Britt and Kanawha. It was people from the Des Moines area, people from out of state. It just like always in Britt and Kanawha, it turns into an event. It's, people come out to support their Eagles. So. Yeah. So sophomore year, you guys made it back to state, bumped up to 2A, which, presents some challenges like always when you bump up a class. Got the season over just before COVID hit, thankfully.
Mhm.
You guys had another 25-2 season. Drawing a blank who you beat in the first round, but then you lost to North Lynn in the semis, had a pretty big lead in the second half of that game. Tied for the conference title with Garrigan. Uh, did you feel more pressure that sophomore year? We got to the state
Yes.
championship game. We got to win it this time. Crap, we're in 2A. We really got to step. I mean, what were kind of
Yeah. I
with
think
that?
we played Logan Magnolia first
Yep,
round.
there you go. Yep,
Um, but yes, there was definitely more pressure, but there was also more confidence
yep,
because we saw who was ahead of us. We've been there before, and we are like, this isn't Newfoundland. We're not talking about someone who is almost unbeatable. These are all teams who are in the same ballpark as us. Um, I think we came in with just a lot of confidence.
yep,
So, which was good. We got past Logan Magnolia. I mean, they were a good team. We definitely did pretty well that game.
good.
And then it was just preparing for Northland. I mean, they had a lot of really strong people. And unfortunately, I think what got the best of us that game, I mean, if you ask other people, I'm sure there's other answers, but one thing that team did not know how to do was score against a zone. I mean, that was like our kryptonite. Like if you put us in a zone, it's really hard for us to play our style of basketball
Yep,
because it really makes us slow down. And that was not something we were used to. So yeah, I mean I can't remember if they put us in a 2-3 or 1-3-1 or what it was, but I just remember being in a zone and just being so frustrated, like, holy cow, we cannot score the freaking ball. And I mean, that was kind of it. Like we couldn't do anything that we normally did, and we were so incredibly frustrated. And that was a terrible way to go out because obviously the seniors were graduating. And all we had on our mind was a state championship. I mean, none of us thought, okay, what if we lose at that point? I
yep,
don't think any of us were prepared for that.
no,
And obviously, I know I wasn't graduating, but I know what we were losing. And so that was really hard to deal with. That sucked, yeah.
yep. So you come from a wrestling family. You were a main contributor on a state runner-up team. You were a main contributor on a state semifinalist team. Were you still getting people going, you should wrestle? And they wouldn't have girls wrestling then. Did you have any pressure to be like, be the 113 pounder or whatever on the wrestling team. Were you ever hearing that, or were people like, no, basketball's kind of her thing?
I I mean, it more so happened when I don't know what year girls wrestling got sanctioned or when they started doing that, but I had some people who were like, you should try that out, you know? But then on the I could have never been the 113 pounder. I was like 145 and in my beginning years of high school and I don't know, I don't remember who was at that weight, but I'm sure I probably wouldn't have beat him out. So I don't think that was ever going to be an option to be on the boys team. But yeah, I think that's going to be one of my biggest regrets, is not trying that out because I think that was always kind of my calling. I think we can all agree that I'm not built like a basketball player. Um, and so I do wish I would have stuck with it. Because I even wrestled when I would go to practices for Little Eagles wrestling practices. Like when I was little, I would just beg my mom to let me go
Yeah,
because she was like, Kennedy, no, basketball's coming. This was probably third or fourth grade. And we started a basketball team officially in fourth grade, I think. Um, but she didn't, girls wrestling was not a thing back then either.
yep,
So it was very new. And I don't know if people were really hype about me, going to the practices as a little girl. Um, but I did. I loved it. And I begged my parents to put me in tournaments. But again, it was just like, that's not what it used to be. And so I never, I never did it. And then once basketball started, I kind of never looked back until late in high school. And then by that point, it was almost a little too late.
yeah, yeah. I got to know Creighton a little bit, and then I know Cole a little bit, and they're tough dudes on the wrestling mat on the football field. But watching you play basketball, I was like, if there's a Kelly I'm not gonna mess with, I'm not messing with Kennedy. Like watching you get after it out there, get after people, be physical, your quickness, I was like, yeah, you would have been a great wrestler, but man, watching you play basketball was pretty awesome. Um,
I think it was a little mix between wrestling and basketball,
yeah, yep.
sometimes.
Like,
I
I'm
think I
not.
got that comment all the time.
Yep. Oh, and then regional duels, Cole's junior, senior year. Can't remember his year they made it to state or just missed it. I'm
Mhm.
watching the live stream and you
I know
front
what you're gonna say.
and center going crazy in the first row and it wasn't just when your brother was wrestling. It didn't matter which West Hancock kid was like. You were going nuts, and I'm like, oh, you can tell she wants to run out there right now. It was great.
Oh my gosh, I know. And I think that was my flaw. I look back on some of that and I'm like, wow, I'm kind of embarrassing. My brothers don't really want me on the sidelines like that. I'm like the crazy mom up in the stands.
It was great.
Um, but it's like so hard to sit back when, the people you love are just right, it's such an intense sport
Yeah.
and they're fighting for so much. And especially like, like Creighton this last season, wrestling with a torn ACL and oh my gosh, it's so many emotions when they're out there. It is because they work so incredibly hard. Wrestling is, I'm a firm believer that it's the hardest sport ever.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And so when they put in so much time, you just want them to do well. And I'm really bad at hiding my emotions when it comes to that.
No, I know I and many others were like, that was awesome just watching her go nuts. While we're talking about your brothers, with your brother hurting his knee at that semifinal football game, that was, oh man, I was down on the field before the game, then up in the press box during the game, and talking to him a little bit. He was so pumped up to get, that be the only class to ever go to four state championship games. And they did, but he had to stand there and watch that
Yeah.
championship. Oh, that just hurt. Then we lose by 4 points. Brady's hurt, half of our line's hurt, and you knew it just killed him to not be able to be out there. I loved his heart and his spirit and all of his sports, but man, that the way his football career ended was just brutal.
Yeah.
Really had a
That
lot of respect for Creighton.
that was truly, yeah, really unfortunate because obviously he already tore his other ACL. And And that's just the main thing. You just want them to go out there and be healthy, or come off the field healthy. And it was so close to wrestling season. And I think that's like the one thing that goes through my head when I'm watching the game. Like, okay, just get up after that play, just get up and walk off and be fine. And obviously, his senior season of wrestling, he had some really big goals to accomplish. And so it was like, okay, this is, the end of football season. If anything happens now, it could ruin his wrestling season also.
Yeah.
And so when he went down, I mean, I thought it was just a cramp. He was kind of, someone walked over to him to try and stretch his leg, and I remember him like shoving him off and saying, no, no, no. And, and then people were like, Steve Indiana, get down there. And so
Yeah.
I followed, and yeah, I mean, just watching him, and, he's just a mess. And that was so hard to watch because I don't know a kid that works harder than he does. And he's, such a kid. I'm good, obviously biased, but he's such an incredible kid. And so, and then, you're just thinking about wrestling season
Yep.
and how, his one goal, he has it written on his whiteboard and his wall, is to be a state champ. And it's like, how is this going to affect that? And once you hear ACL tear, it's like, oh God,
Yep. And
yeah.
kids still almost did it. That was
I know. Oh my
crazy.
gosh. It's like, I don't know. Because when I tore we have two different families here, I think, because when I tore my ACL, it was like literally it felt like a football player just dove into my knee and like sideways. It hurt so bad. I was on
Yep.
the floor immediately. Like I couldn't hardly walk. But with Creighton, something with him, he's very asymptomatic, and like PTs have said this too, because he hardly swells up. He can walk after fine. I mean, his first ACL, it was actually incredible. Like he tore it during football season, and then he he just thought he hyperextended his knee. I mean, that's kind of what he was told. So he kept playing throughout football season. He
Yep.
wrestled all of his freshman season with a torn ACL. He didn't know. And then during track season, it was like, okay, mom, this is still kind of hurting. Um, what like can we go get this checked out? Well, then he had to go to get that approved for an MRI. He had to go do 2 weeks of PT to see if it would help.
Yep.
So, he's getting all these tests done by PTs, the tests where you can kind of like maneuver the knee, and nobody's saying anything because he's very asymptomatic.
Yep.
Finally, they got the MRI, and it was completely torn this whole time. And I don't know, how you can just do that with an ACL. That's, I mean, insane.
No.
And it wasn't like a partial tear or anything. It was a full-blown tear.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, with his knee, his senior year, um, again, he was pretty asymptomatic. This time it was definitely more emotional though. I mean, he just had some really lofty goals to accomplish, and doing it on a torn ACL it was going to be hard. Um, and he just felt it a lot more. I think this one it was just a lot more painful, and at Osage, that was really hard to watch. That was the one meet that I wasn't gonna come back for because the weather was really, really bad that day. And it was like a 2 hour drive from Ames. And all of a sudden I watch on the live stream, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh. He was wrestling that Osage Mueller kid.
Yep.
And he got a hold, he was on bottom, and he was getting out. He stood up, and the Osage kid grabbed his ankle, and Creighton tried to like, kick out of it. And he just went down, and I mean, he thought his whole career was over right then.
Yeah.
He was very emotional about it. And at that point, that was, he didn't know if he would qualify for state because he would have to go out, wrestle a wrestleback, and
Yep.
win that wrestleback. And so that was an extremely emotional day for my whole family. But he ended up winning that wrestleback, and, um, then going on to state. So.
In the state finals.
In the state finals. Yeah,
Yep.
I was just like begging him, like, just keep people away from that knee. I mean, protect it with your life. Like,
Yep.
and he did. He didn't have many problems at state, really. I mean, it just felt super unstable, but the Iowa State athletic training staff really, really helped him out there. So we were very thankful for them.
Down here where I live, we're a wrestling school, and people know what I do for West Hancock, so they're always checking in and stuff. And some people give me crap about it and whatnot. And after Creighton lost that finals match, it was Teague lost 2 matches, Kellen lost 3, Hunter Hagen had lost. So it's like 7 straight state title matches we've
Yeah.
lost, which I go, we're in a good place when we're complaining and be like, oh, we can't win the big. I'm like, some schools would kill just to have one guy there. But someone in joking, it wasn't a serious comment. He goes, man, another West Hancock kid couldn't win it. And I said, you have no freaking idea what that kid has gone through in the his whole high school career, but this last couple months for sure. I said, that kid is one of the biggest studs I've ever met in my entire life. The guy was joking with me, but I kind of let him have it and he didn't know the context, and I felt bad
Yeah.
afterwards, and I apologized, but I was like, that kid, I have a lot of respect for that kid and what he accomplished with.
Yeah. And I think Creighton was just kind of disappointed because I think all of us could agree that he didn't really look like himself that match. I think he was pretty tired by this point. Like he could have went out there and beat that kid. Like he really could have. He didn't wrestle like he normally did. And I think he was pretty disappointed after that. But honestly, I was just like, we were all so happy and proud. Like I thought I was gonna be really, ticked off if he lost. Not at him, but just the situation.
Mm.
But honestly, it was just a sigh of relief that it was almost over because then I know, okay, he's not going to hurt his knee anymore. He's going to have surgery now. We're going to move on from this. He's going to be better. Because it was such an emotional roller coaster that season.
Yeah.
So many low, low lows that we had to work through. So that, yeah,
Yeah.
I was almost a little bit glad it was over.
Yeah, and I talked to your dad throughout, and Steve and I have gotten to be friends over the last couple years, and it's hard on him, hard on your mom, I know, and but man, just tough kid. Well, this is the most Kelly episode I've done, where we're in the middle of your basketball career, and what are we doing talking about wrestling for
Yeah.
15 minutes?
Right? It always circles back.
Yep, that's I'm with a Kelly, that's for sure. So anyway, sophomore year, yeah, you had 234 points, 69 rebounds, 84 assists, 94 steals, 3 blocks. Um, that was your sophomore year. You guys lost at state to North Lynn. Um, you lose all those girls except for pretty much you and Rachel, and then some girls that got a little bit of time here and there. But it was such a senior dominated team that year, besides you two. I think, people see the state trophies at the school, but what you guys accomplished, Coach Sonius and his staff, the next 2 years was pretty incredible because, yeah, Rachel was a all-state player. You're an all-state player, but it takes more than two to be an excellent basketball team. Your
Yeah.
junior year, you guys go 19-6. That's just a testament of a good program, good coaching, good players. Um, you ran into Dyke New Hartford, who was on a tear at that point in volleyball and basketball. You
Yes.
were a game away from state. I think they won that game by 30 or 40 points, but just impressive that you guys darn near won 20 games that year with losing all, five, six girls that were 3 and 4 year starters almost. So
Yeah.
you started all 25 games, 364 points, 87 rebounds, 78 assists, 102 steals, and 5 blocks. So that's pretty impressive. What do you remember about having to be kind of the man, you and Rachel taking over for all those girls that graduated?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a tough transition at the first, but I think the same principles were ingrained in us. I mean, we just, we knew those girls from last season. Obviously, it wasn't that long ago. It was the same, not expectations to, necessarily go to the state finals or anything like that, but it was the same principles. Like we were doing these drills in practice just like how we did last year. They were just as we tried to make them just as competitive. The same standards were upheld, I think. So maybe the talent wasn't the same, but when you have the same standards, I think that that definitely helps.
Yep, yep. And then you move on to your senior year. Rachel's gone too, so all the girls from the state finals and Rachel are gone, and now it's you and a couple of your classmates and younger girls. You went from 19-6 to 18-6, same conference record, 12-4. You guys kind of just kept things going at that point. Um, you won a playoff game, then you lost in the regional semifinals. So you were 2 games away from state your senior year. You had 337 points, 101 steals, 82 assists, 87 rebounds, and 1 block. Talk about those kind of that last year and rounding out your career.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard because that was obviously the earliest we'd ever stopped playing basketball. So it was hard to look at that as like, okay, now you're a senior, you're a leader, and this is kind of what happened. But you have to think about all the things that changed, from my freshman year to my senior year. And so I think it was hard for me to be this extremely competitive individual and then also try and be a good leader because I could have went out there and been super disappointed with the games we were losing and tried to took it out on the girls I was playing with, but that obviously that wouldn't have been a good leader. I feel like I tried to be a good leader. I'm sure sometimes I let my emotions show, but yeah, I wanted to try and focus more on different goals because it was a completely different team than we were freshman, sophomore year.
Yeah.
And we'd been playing, I mean, that group of girls, like my grade, we played together since we were little. I mean, we had a team when we were little, but um yeah, I mean, we were motivated. We always my grade we love basketball and so there were some good girls under us too. So it was some other grades as well, but I think we still had a good time. Obviously, we still held our ground in the conference and but yeah, there was just a little bit of a tough time transitioning, obviously.
But 19 and 6 and 18 and 6 still really good seasons. And like I said earlier, you see the state trophies at the school. You don't have a trophy from your last two seasons, but as a middle-aged guy who's coached many sports for many years, and I'm a head coach currently, I can look at those two seasons and go, those are just as impressive to a degree than some of those other seasons because of what you guys lost. And that's a testament to Dale Hesley and Kevin Wilson and Coach Sonius. Like, yeah, you're gonna miss those girls that graduate every year, but you have to, as a program, it's next. Let's go. And that's what good coaches do is they keep good relationships with those girls, but they don't sit there the next year and wallow in the, oh, I don't have this girl anymore, or I don't have this kid anymore. For me in golf, I had a good season this year. I returned everybody but one kid next year. We're gonna be really good. Then I lose a ton of seniors. I can't sit there and go, well, we're gonna stink next year because I lost all those kids, so who cares what happens? It's no, you're gonna just move on, like you said, with Coach Sonius did, is just we got to keep doing the same drills and we got to keep putting the same amount of work in. You just have to keep going, and that's what good programs do. And I think those two seasons years, junior senior year, were pretty impressive for what you guys did. So
Yeah, I mean, and you go look at practices, it's like nothing changed. I mean, the competition, everybody was still just as competitive and none of the drills changed. I mean, Sonius is a very laid out practice. I mean, I don't know if he does it like this anymore, but you knew exactly what was coming.
yeah,
None of that changed. So having those plans, I think, in place and just the high competitive nature of the practices, I mean, that helped.
yep, definitely. So yeah, you guys went 87 and 16 in your 4 years, 55 and 9 in the conference, which is really good because you had to play against this girl named Audie Crooks twice a year. They went to the state finals. They won a state title. We know what she's doing at Iowa State now. Do you know Audie very well? Do you run into her on campus? Do you guys?
The only time we see each other is when I'm tutoring at the athletic facility. I'll see her every now and then and we say hi, but because I don't know what her major is or what she is. I never really see her on campus or anything like that.
Yep, she's probably pretty busy with everything going on.
I'm sure.
Um, I wrote down on paper your overall cumulative stats, but you were well over 1,000 points. I had them written down. I just must not have typed them up. But your career numbers are very impressive, especially when you get 4 years of varsity ball, and that's pretty cool. So, um, Iowa State. Let's jump ahead to kind of present day. You are engaged to Caleb Bacon. How do you feel about your last name being about a delicious food I
Yeah,
just had
everyone
somewhere
asks
new
you that. I'm
today?
like, I don't know, does that sound good together? Kennedy bacon? I don't know.
Well, I was thinking Canadian bacon, like Canadian bacon, Canadian
That
bacon.
that can be our wedding slogan. That would be good.
That, I mean, Caleb's a D1 athlete. There's NIL money to be had with that somehow. So,
And you know what? I'm his manager, I like to say. I got his business email and I've reached out to people. I'm like, I really need to do more with this because the brands,
it
they
writes
want
itself.
it literally does. So yeah, I need to get busy with that.
Yep. Canadian, it's hard to say it until you use it. Canadian bacon, like Canadian bacon, but Canadian bacon. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I expect at least 15% of all the royalties if that ever takes off. So,
got it.
yeah, you're welcome. So, Caleb, we're talking about injuries and stuff. He had his fair share, but talk about what you've experienced and seen with having, like, I talked to Rylan Barnes, he plays linebacker at Iowa State, and it's not Class A football anymore. Pretty big deal, even though Class A football is a big deal to us. Just what does he experience? What do you see? What do you hear with him being in that program?
There's been ups and downs. His freshman season, and I would say maybe his grade almost got the worst of it because as far as sports goes with COVID, because recruiting for that grade was awful because everybody, this would have been Brock Purdy, Brees Hall, they all got granted a fifth year, so they all came back. And so Caleb being a walk-on, like there was no room for him on the roster. Like he was technically, yes, a part of the team, but he wasn't like if you were to look him up, he wouldn't be on the roster. And so like during the games, he had to sit on the sidelines and like he didn't get all the food. I mean, it was a really tough year. He didn't even practice with the team. So his freshman year, when I would have been in high school still, like that was pretty hard because obviously I was still in high school. I didn't know everything going on down in Ames, and I mean he's a very extremely motivated individual, but it was like all the other walk-ons in his grade are basically gone from Iowa State. They all transferred out either that year they transferred out at semester or I mean, they just never ended up playing, so they were just gone at that point. But it was tough. So, the fact that he stuck that out and now he's having this much success, I think is a good testament to him. Um, but yeah, it's hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows, but I love the program at Iowa State. I think it's one of the best programs in the nation as far as just character building and just having good people that surround you, having coaches that are obsessed with football but also care so much about their athletes. Um, and I kind of do get to see interesting point of views with being a tutor and a mentor. Because no, I can't tutor any of the football team because it's a conflict of interest per
Yeah.
NCAA regulations. Literally, there's so many rules behind tutoring for the facility or whatever.
Because you're
Uh,
dating a football player.
Yes, I mean it's crazy. Like we tutoring, mentoring, for like D1 sports and stuff like that. Like we have to go through training every semester, and you have to sign all these waivers. I mean, it's very confidential. You can't sports bet. You have to sign off on that. Like it's very very confidential. But yeah, if you have any sort of association with a player on whatever team. I mean, if my roommate was a gymnast, like I couldn't tutor any gymnasts or um so yeah, I can't work with any of the football team. But I do get to work with their athletic or their academic advisors and coordinators and stuff like that. And so I've gotten to see how, Campbell wants things run and the expectations that they put on these players because it is I think, maybe sometimes people think that football players kind of just, they play football there and then they get by on school, like whatever.
Yeah.
There is, there's so many expectations that Campbell makes them uphold in the classroom. I don't remember if it's like spring ball or if it's like winter conditioning. They do all these competitions and I mean, they get drafted on teams and it's a point system.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you're late to your tutor, if you're late to class, if you park in the wrong spot out in the parking lot, if you park in the coach's lot, or if you park in a handicap spot, um, you get points taken off. And at the end of the week, it's like, okay, you're either scrubbing bathrooms or you're rolling at 6:30 or 6 a.m. So I mean, there's very, very high standards that are upheld within this program, which I think is incredible because I think sometimes that, not every program's like that.
No.
And so they focus on football and they have seen success in football, but um, they have success in other areas of life just because this is ingrained in them at this level.
Yeah,
So
and how many of them are going to be in the NFL someday? You know,
yeah.
a handful. So it's not football is life. That's the end game is NFL. A lot of these guys aren't going to play past their last year in college. So it's commendable, I'd say. How
Yeah.
many Pop Tarts do you have left from the Pop Tarts Bowl this year?
Oh my gosh. I actually never got one from that, crazy enough, and I don't know why.
Gosh, that
Some of the players had a little box that they took home. I don't know. Maybe Caleb ate them all. I don't know. I just never saw any of those. So
so Caleb was out most of this season.
yes.
Last year, or I mean, football's going to be here in a month. One of the players that had to step in and play in his absence, and I mean, they just got hit by the injury bug at the wrong time, but Rylan Barnes stepped in and kind of made a name for himself, got himself an NIL deal, and uh, got his name said a lot on national TV and played well. Talk about the Ryland Caleb connection, Lake Mills, Britt. A lot of fun seeing these, and then the Kingsley Pearson kid played quite a bit. Just watching
Yeah.
these small town
Oh,
Iowa kids play at such a high level.
yeah. I think that Bo Goodwin, I think, is from Kingsley Pearson, if I
Yep.
remember that correctly. And then Cooper Ebel, then he's from Hartley.
Yep.
So
Yep. And they played each other. So
yes, it was like all three of those guys were kind of in there at the same time, and it was like small town football represents. So that was cool. But they're all super close. I think you kind of spend the most amount of time with your position. They go on little linebacker trips to one of the guys' lake houses at Lake Panorama, and so they spend a lot of time together and they have fun together, and so it's extremely high competition. They're always going against each other, but at the end of the day, I think they're all really good friends, and so
yeah.
it's really good to see.
Do you get to all the games or mostly just the home ones?
I last year I went to well, I didn't go to as many last year just because
Because you didn't
Caleb
play.
wasn't playing.
Yeah.
I mean, my goal if Caleb would have been playing, then yeah, I would have probably went to like a majority of them. I been to all the Kansas ones, K-State, KU, and then Iowa. This year I have plans to go to Colorado, TCU, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State. So, pretty much a majority of them. Yeah, I think the only one that I'm for sure not going to go to is Arkansas State.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Last question for you, and we're going to wrap this up. Who is your favorite uncle, and why is it
Oh
not?
no.
And why is it not Pat Kelly?
That is such a hard question. That's like, who's your favorite child? Like, you can't answer that.
But why is it not Pat? Can you just give me that?
Why is it not Pat? No, he would get mad.
Pat's a good friend of mine. We've gotten well, when I started doing the podcast, we were talking before we record. You're like, some people, yeah, I hear like they're 20 episodes behind, and all of a sudden they catch up and watch them months later. Pat was one of them. Randomly got a call from him one day, and I'm like, Pat Kelly, oh, he's a former state champion. I know who that is. And he goes, I just found out about this thing. Do you know what I've been doing for a month straight? Listening to these things. And he's like, I got a notebook full of notes. And we started texting and calling each other. And I mean, we talk frequently. And
Yeah.
I always joke, we talk about Brit Wrestling being such a powerhouse. My wrestling subcommittee for the Hall of Fame is Pat Kelly and Brent Hagen. 5 state championships between them, and then me. Like I always just joke, which of these things is not like the others in this group, and it's me because those guys are legendary wrestlers. So Pat and I have gotten to be good friends. So any chance I can to give Pat a hard time, I make sure I take that opportunity. So
So funny.
yeah. So as we wrap this up, next up on the podcast in a couple weeks, we've talked about them a lot tonight, Paul and Connor Sonius. And then I got my buddy Jesse Barker. And then I'm doing some Kanawha episodes. I was hoping to make it July Kanawha, but then my timeline got all messed up. So it'll more be like August. I got Lana Wicks. She was a stud female athlete from Kanawha in the 1960s. And then Tony Morris is a state champion in track. And Alan Miller was a teacher and coach at Kanawha at the middle school, at West Hancock Middle School in kind of the 90s. And a lot of people my age remember him, and I'm gonna have a good time talking to him. So, Kennedy, you didn't have to answer my question. Don't say a favorite uncle, but anything you want to talk about as we're kind of wrapping it up?
I don't know. I think I got it all out. You asked
Good.
some good questions.
Perfect. So, I had a blast talking to you. You're what, 21 years old, and I'm old man River here, and I'm always impressed with the young people we're producing out of West Hancock. Like you're wise beyond your years, just great stories, great storyteller, know how to say the right things, and just it was a great time talking to you. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. I
So
appreciate
yeah, and congrats on the upcoming wedding. We will definitely try to market that new name I gave you tonight, and
Thank you. Thank
find a
you.
way to make that happen. So appreciate you coming on. Hall of Fame. I got a point. We were talking about Pat. I got to throw one more little plug out there. August 29th is the 2025 West Hancock Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Your uncle Pat Kelly and your other uncle Jeff Kelly are going in as individuals. both two-time state champions. Jeff was a three-time qualifier. Pat was a four-time qualifier. They're going into the Hall of Fame along with Lois DeLeon, the 1952 Kanawha baseball teams, the 1972 and 1973 Britt wrestling teams, and Doug Pooch. So, hope to see everybody out there at the Hall of Fame. We'll have a halftime introduction at the football game, and then that night after the game at the Britt Golf Course, so about 9:30 start time, we will do the induction ceremony for those six inductees, and I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few Kellys there that night. What do you think?
There might be, yeah.
Yeah. What football game for Caleb's the next day? Are you going to be able to make the Hall of Fame?
What day is that, you
It's
said?
Friday, August 29th. Do they have a game that early? They might not.
Well, they play in Ireland the 23rd. And
Okay.
then, gosh, I can't even remember their first game is. I don't know if they do play that early. They
Okay,
might
so
have a week off or something like that. I don't
okay,
know.
we'll see you there. West Hancock Hall of Fame. Watch your
Yeah.
uncles get inducted. I told Pat to keep his speech under an hour, so
Yeah,
we'll,
right? Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. So, well, again, Kennedy, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. And we always end this with Go Eagles. You bet. Take care, guys.